Nancy Pelosi is set to step down from House leadership, both as the minority leader and the speaker. And I've got some thoughts as to why she's doing this now, but she gives a long and lengthy speech explaining her positions and basically patting herself on the back, which is funny because I didn't think that 80-year-old arms could reach that far back to pat oneself on the back. But we'll talk about that and what this means for American politics going forward and what I think this means for the House leadership as of now. In other news, Joe Biden moves to shield the Saudi crown prince in the journalist killing after promising us on the campaign trail that was going to be his number one priority, was going after Mohammed bin Salman for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. But we'll go over that and what that means and where we go. An Obama-era judge is facing backlash for halting the Stop Woke Act at institutions of higher learning. So we'll look at that decision and some of the reaction to that. And right after the midterm elections, AG Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, after he's won his gubernatorial race, then goes after somebody for forging signatures in the Democrat capacity. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to the end of midterm season. I'm Jay Edgar, And this is Contemporary. The Gerudo Valley song is probably one of the best ones on the Zelda soundtrack, and that didn't even make it into my poll, by the way, yesterday. I don't know if any of you guys are Zelda fans at all. I did put a poll up yesterday, and I put my 4 favorite Zelda songs on there, but if you guys have a different favorite one, I do hope that you guys would put your selection in there, because, well, I kind of want to, especially now that we're playing Link to the Past on the gaming side, I want to see which one it is, and I mean, the whole game is a masterpiece too, so it looks like, actually, right now I only have 2 votes on it, but I asked, and I put a 2-day limit on this one, what is your favorite song on the soundtracks for Legend of Zelda? I've got the Dark World of Link to the Past, the Forest theme in Link's Awakening, the Dungeon theme in Zelda 2, which is probably one of my favorites as well, and the Tall Tall Heights, the mountain theme in Link's Awakening as well. So I've got 2 entries from Link's Awakening, but then yeah, we've got the Gerudo Valley that we just listened to, well, remix of the one that we just listened to from Ocarina of Time, and well, I mean, that's a game that's transcended several generations at this point, and people all around the world have loved this game. So if you guys have a favorite or have a different one than the 4 that I put up there, definitely go back and tell me. My friend Blippity Blop, who is from across the pond, put in their Outset Island theme from the Wind Waker, which I haven't played that one, so I don't know that one, but that is definitely on my list of things that I do want to play, because, well, I wanted to, especially now that I'm streaming, I want to do all the Zelda games before I'm 40. Make sure I've at least played all of them before I'm 40, which is coming up in just a little bit over a year and a quarter. No, a little bit under a year and a quarter. Can I do it? I don't know, because I don't know how long the other games are going to go, but maybe I won't be able to do it before I'm 40, but I do want to take an attempt at that, and now that I'm streaming, I think that, you guys can keep me on task, and I think that's something that a lot of people would enjoy, is just seeing all the Zelda games on Twitch. But with that, we're completely off topic, and we got to talk about Nancy Pelosi. We got to talk about Justin Amash wanting to be Nancy Pelosi's counterpart, because that's funny. And I think that there's some strategy behind Nancy Pelosi stepping down right now, and I do think it has to do with the fact that there are so many people who are trying to sandbag Kevin McCarthy right now. I really think that that's actually what's going on with that. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what else are we going to talk about? We'll talk about Carrie Lake, because she's declining to concede. Meanwhile, Lauren Boebert's taking a victory lap. The Khashoggi killing, because, that is a stark 180 from what Biden said on the campaign trail, and so much more over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Overruled with KTZed, tweets by Britt, Mr. Behavior if you're into the video gaming side. Otherwise, we've got the New Gimmicks Podcast and PJ Patriot. Go check out all that great programming of people who are out there looking to bring you news and culture from the common man for the common man, Because we shouldn't all be getting our news from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. And if you are lurking, or you see that there are people lurking, encourage some chat today, because I have written down the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat. Right here, we'll go ahead and give a special thank you to everybody who is on this list today, including looking in at some of the live chat that you guys put in as well. I want to see what you guys have to say about some of these stories, and I want to reward you for saying it, because that does help move us up the algorithm. The more you guys chat, the more that DLive and Twitch promote us, so it's part of the reason that we cross-platform, and part of the reason that I do say the special thank you to the people who chat in the live chat, because it's an encouragement to do so on a program where I normally don't really have the ability to check in with the live chat, because I pretty much got to wrap up my microphone here at the end of the show and run off to work, so we got to get as much news in as we can. But with that, let's get past the introductions, let's get into the news, and let's get started. We are, of course, going to be using our game display now, because then I can see what you guys are saying in the live chat, and you guys can see what you're saying in the live chat too, because apparently there are some issues with overseas conversation on the live chat with YouTube and the Restream bot. But with that, let's get into it. Let's get started. Let's get the live chat up over here so I can see what you guys are saying, and let's go. Starting with the Dow, which is down 7 points over yesterday to 33,546.32, and it spent most of the day below. It did crack the previous close at one point throughout the day, and then it dropped below and cracked it one more time before trying to come back and rally up. The futures are looking like they are turning back up right now, so we'll see what's happening in the finance world. We'll talk about that, and we will read from IBD. On the Bitcoin is at, let me get a refresh on this, 16,746 US dollars and 10 US cents. That is on the day up 65 US dollars and 70 US cents, or 0.39%. Looking back out to the 5-day, it looks like, actually, before we do that, right at the opening for the day, which I don't know what time zone they're starting from. I know they're saying it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, according to the tracker that they have going with that, but I don't know what time zone they are officially reading from, but at the start of when they considered the start of the day, it jumped up significantly and then tapered off in the jump up, and then kind of jumped around and dropped throughout the day, bringing itself back to steady, going out to the 5-day. And on the 5-day, the Bitcoin, with the exception of 5 days ago, looks actually very, very steady. It goes up, it goes down, but it stays in a very, very tight range. So it's looking like people are not either dumping it off or buying into it, so we're not doing any wild swings economically right now, so we will see what's happening with that and where that goes. And the gas prices in Madison, Wisconsin are holding steady as well. 360 on the west side at the Exxon, 340 on the far north side at the BP, 350 at the BP on the far east side. The quick trips on both the east and west sides are at 340. The quick trip going into the Isthmus at 348. The Amoco is at 340 on the Isthmus. So a little bit of moving and shaking, but staying somewhat steady as we go. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning from Investors Business Daily. Dow futures rise after market rally rebounds from key levels. 5 earnings winners from Ed Carson. Dow futures rose early Friday along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. The stock market rally fell Thursday on hawkish Fed statements, extending Wednesday's losses, but the major indices rebounded from some key levels to close ever so slightly lower. Treasury yields rebounded while crude oil prices tumbled. Apple, Microsoft, and Alphabet, the only $3 trillion stocks on the U.S. exchanges, rallied after testing support at their 50-day moving averages. Meanwhile, Tesla retreated towards its bear market lows. Investors should be cautious in the current market, adding exposure slowly and ready to take profits and cut losses quickly. Profit, Rom. That's all that it is. It's profit. Applied Materials, Palo Alto Networks, Clearfield, and Ross Stores all top EPS and sales views late Thursday, with guidance also generating strong. Applied Materials rose solidly early Friday, poised to move back above its 200-day line. Palo Alto Networks jumped, signaling a move above its 50-day. Clearfield surged in extended trade, looking to race above a 50-day line as it tries to rebuild on the right side of a double-bottom base. Ross Stores blasted towards 2022 highs after closing in a range from a bottoming base. JD.com and Adcore reported rather early on Friday. JD.com earnings topped views while revenue fell short. Much like Alibaba early Thursday, JD rose modestly in pre-market trading. On Thursday, shares jumped 7.5% on Alibaba's results right up to the 200-day line. Adcore rose solidly on Friday as building products maker Adcore beat fiscal quarter 4 views and guided higher quarter 1 and 2023 profit. Adcore fell 3.5% on Thursday, but was comfortably above its 200-day line as it works on the right side of a deep cup base. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.6, the S&P gained 0.8, and the Nasdaq jumped 0.95 with Advanced Materials and Palo Alto Networks lifting techs. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 3 points to 3.8. Crude oil fell nearly 2%, while natural gas sank more than 3%. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. And as earnings season draws to a close, we're not getting the big moves and shakes, as more people are looking and seeing where we go for the next fiscal quarter, quarter 4, and then also into quarter 1. So a lot of speculation right now, a lot of people looking at the retail sales, the Christmas retail sales, and wondering where it is that we are going to be month over month, year over year, and what the inflated prices are going to look like, and how many people are going to be keeping their jobs or getting new ones as we go into the season. It's a mystery, it's a pickle, and we will see what happens with that as we go. Let's talk Nancy Pelosi. Starting with Axios. Meet the likely House Democrat leaders in the post-Pelosi era. Yes, that is right. Pelosi gave a rambling speech yesterday, telling us about her first time at the Capitol, being 6 years old, thinking it was capital A, capital B, and capital C. I did listen to this entire speech. She did not go for a full hour. I don't think it was quite worthy of the religious experience that people like JoJo from Jers or Paul Ryan had with it. It definitely had some emotion to it, but it wasn't I'm almost to tears like some people were out there talking about. But I do want to talk first about the new people who are looking up to see and possibly take some of these positions. Speaker Pelosi's reign over House Democratic Party is officially coming to a close as she's passing the baton to a new generation of leaders. Why it matters: those who have served loyally by her side for nearly 2 decades, Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn, have said they're ready to step aside and allow for the new guard to ascend to power. That's given way for the rise of Reps Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Peter Aguilar of New York, Massachusetts, and California. The three have developed a close relationship while serving together in leadership, and they'll run as a united front with buy-in from a large swath of Democratic caucus that is eager to usher in a younger and more diverse group of leaders to power. In an emotional and historic speech on the House floor Thursday afternoon, Pelosi announced that she will not run again for leadership, though she plans to remain in the House as a lawmaker. She made the way for the new guard in her remarks, declaring, "The hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I greatly respect." 83-year-old Maryland Democrat Steny Hoyer has been coy for months about whether he'd try to replace Pelosi as Speaker should she step down, but he announced Thursday that he, like Pelosi, does not plan to seek another role in leadership. Meanwhile, Clyburn, the 82-year-old South Carolinian, plans to run for the assistant Democratic leadership position. Punchbowl News first reported Clyburn, who serves with Jeffries on the Congressional Black Caucus, has long been supportive of Jeffries' ascension. Speaker Pelosi left an indelible mark on Congress and the country, and I look forward to her continued service and doing whatever I can to assist our new generation of Democratic leaders, which I hope will be Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar. Worth noting, there's a chance, though it is unlikely, that other members make their own bid to replace Pelosi. As of now, no one has stepped forward to challenge Jeffries for that role. Let's have a look at some of the new people that are jumping up here. And they're all older still. Aguilar is actually the youngest, and he's not really that much older than I am. Hakeem Jeffries, the 52-year-old New Yorker, represents parts of Brooklyn and Queens and is the fifth-ranking Democrat in Congress. Jeffries has long been considered the frontrunner to replace Pelosi and is widely favored to succeed her. Pelosi was the first woman elected Speaker roughly 2 decades ago, and some Democrats have an eye towards naming a similarly historic replacement. Because it's got to be all about the first this, the first that. Although on the Democrat side, I will say that they kind of do have to jump down that line because, well, let's face it. They have to be in the history books as being the historic trendsetters, and there is a swath of black Republicans, black female Republicans, not as big as you'd like to think, because of course the indoctrination is that all Republicans hate black people, but there are people out there that are looking at the leadership and being the first in some of these leadership positions. Jeffries would be the first black lawmaker in history in either party to be the leader of either chamber. Jeffries and Pelosi are close, but Jeffries hasn't built a strong relationship with the left wing of the party. Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez has previously considered trying to take Jeffries out by launching a primary challenge against him in the 2020 cycle. Jeffries and McCarthy grow accustomed to trading barbs at each other, usually in the press, but will have to figure out a working relationship if they are both ending up in leading their respective parties. Catherine Clark, the 59-year-old, has become a popular member within the caucus, helping freshman members settle into their new jobs throughout her role as assistant speaker. Apart from Pelosi, she's the only other woman on the caucus's leadership team, continuing to have female presence at the top echelon of power. Following Pelosi's departure is important to many members of the caucus, including Clark. I think there's something about women's leadership styles that are built on listening, building consensus, and listening not just to people, our constituents, but also to my colleagues that come from different districts, have different concerns, different pressures than I do, Clark told Axios in an interview last year. Clark has 3 children, which has motivated her interest in childcare issues and her affinity for the needs of fellow lawmakers balancing work, life, and jobs. And Pete Aguilar, the 43-year-old, currently Democratic Caucus Vice Chair, is highest-ranking Hispanic in Congress. He has risen to prominence this year, in part to his position on the high-profile January 6 Selfie Fest committee, investigating former President Trump's involvement in sending people to take selfies and mill around aimlessly, wondering what to do next in the rotunda in the Capitol. Aguilar is seen as the most talented communicators in the House, and has gained a reputation for being a team player that will look out for his fellow colleagues. Aguilar, former mayor of Redlands, California, also played a central role in bipartisan immigration reform push in 2018 that won him credit across his party. So, a few people that are out here. Big notice here is that, because it's the Democrat caucus, no white men. Because, of course, they can never put that kind of person back up. It can't be about the merits. It has to be about being the first this and the first that. So we will see what happens on the leadership side. Unfortunately, there is no coalition. Unfortunately for them, there's no coalition there. So, and I think that does play into the strategy as well. Looking at the Pelosi speech from the Associated Press, Pelosi to step down from House leadership but stay in Congress, from Lisa Mascaro. House Speaker Pelosi on Thursday said that she will not seek a leadership position in the new Congress, ending a historic run as the first woman with a gavel and making her way for new generations to steer the party after Democrats lost control of the House to Republicans in the midterm elections. In a spirited speech on the House floor, Pelosi announced that she will step aside after leading Democrats for nearly 20 years and in the aftermath of the brutal attacks on her husband, Paul, last month in their San Francisco home, and after having done the people's work. The work of making herself rich by adjusting her stock portfolio based on the laws that she makes, I should say. The California Democrat, a pivotal figure in U.S. history and perhaps the most powerful speaker in modern times, said that she would remain in Congress as the representative from San Francisco. Let's do the Green Day thing. The representative from California has the floor. A position she has held for 35 years. When the new Congress convenes in January. I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress, she said. For me, the hour has come for a new generation to lead the Democrat caucus that I so deeply respect. Now, she said, we must boldly move into the future. Dressed in white in a nod to the suffragettes. In spite of the fact that it's after Labor Day, Pelosi greeted with cheers as she arrived for the hastily called address. She received a standing ovation when she closed lawmakers and guests one by one, crowding her with hugs, many taking selfies of a moment in history. President Biden, who had encouraged Pelosi to stay on as the Democratic leader, mostly because he doesn't want to be the oldest person in federal government leadership, spoke with Pelosi in the morning and congratulated her on her historic tenure as the Speaker of the House. History will note she's the most consequential Speaker in the House of Representatives in our history, Biden said in a statement, noting her ability to win unity from her caucus and her absolute dignity. There is 0% chance that he wrote that himself. It's an unusual choice for a party leader to stay on after withdrawing from congressional leadership, but not without precedent, and Pelosi had long defied convention in pursuing power in Washington, which she did. A lot of power, that's what she tried to gather. In an interview with reporters after her announcement, Pelosi said she won't endorse anyone in the race to succeed her, and she won't sit on any committees as the rank-and-file lawmaker. She said, the attack on her husband made me think again about staying. Now, that's just a convenient way for you to come back, look around, and say, okay, there's a challenge coming from McCarthy. I guess it's time for strategy now. I didn't plan to go this direction on this, but I guess it's time at this point. Right now, they're using the attack on Pelosi, which I'm thoroughly convinced that they orchestrated. Send out a TaskRabbit to a guy saying, hey, come beat a guy in the head with a hammer and we'll pay you all your legal fees, we'll get you bailed out, you just have to go get arrested. And we'll take care of the rest. David Pape doesn't spend a day in jail outside of his pretrial. I promise you that. But with that being said, and with what's going on with this, one of the things that's going on with this, on a razor thin margin, number one, I think if we'd have got the red wave that we were all promised on 538 and everything else, Pelosi would still be seeking leadership. What's happening now? Andy Biggs and several members of the House Freedom Caucus have launched a pledge to vote against McCarthy. They've decided that they don't want to vote for him or force him into major concessions as the Speaker. To the point where many of them have said that they're probably not going to vote for him because he's unlikely to make the concessions. Meanwhile, and what have I said? Up until basically yesterday, I said there's a better than 50-50 chance that Nancy Pelosi takes the speakership. Still. I still think there's a better than 0 chance that it's a Democrat speaker. I don't think it's better than 50-50 anymore. Because, as we talked about when we talked about Hakeem Jeffries and Pete Aguilar, and I can't think of the woman's name, Catherine Clark, as we look at all of them, none of them have a coalition, and Nancy Pelosi is not putting her weight behind any of the three. It will be very important in this upcoming Congress, even with a razor-thin margin, for a Republican to be the Speaker of the House. It will be incredibly important for that, because we are going to have the Inflation Production Act come home to roost, and we are going to see massive inflation. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is being cut off, which means they're not going to have that cheap gas that they bought at $30 a barrel entering into the markets. And your gas prices are going to go up next year. I hate to tell you this, but your gas prices are going up next year. If they can manage to get themselves through the Supreme Court, which has said that Biden has the authority to do the student loan forgiveness, that's going to show up in the next Congress as inflation. And a lot of the money that we've continued to send to Ukraine is going to continue to drive inflation through the next Congress. Not to mention the fact that nothing's going to get done, and there's possibly going to be a government shutdown. In fact, I would put the odds of a government shutdown at least once in the next Congress at a good 70%. It will depend on what they do with the continuing resolution that's supposed to come up in 3 weeks, and how far they push it out. All of these things are pointing to the fact that the media does need a whipping boy. They cannot sit there and they can't sit and point to McConnell forever, because he is in the minority, and he will be in the minority in the next Congress, unless something miraculous happens and either Nevada or Arizona get overturned after the lawsuits. Unless something miraculous happens there, Mitch McConnell is not going to be the majority leader of the Senate for the second term of the second half of the first Biden term of the presidency. The media needs a whipping boy, and that whipping boy is going to be named Kevin McCarthy. I do believe that Nancy Pelosi would be the House Majority Leader if there'd have been, House Minority Leader, if there'd have been a bigger coalition of Republicans winning in the House, and McCarthy's speakership was almost assured. With it not being assured, now we have to go split the votes between these three candidates, who Axios is conveniently marketing out, so people go become tribal and tell their representatives to become tribal. And a lot of this is strategy. I mean, these people have been in this chamber for ever and ever and ever. Nancy Pelosi is practically a dinosaur. They know what they're doing. They know how to amass power for themselves and power for their party, using their media arm, their propaganda arm, to promote to promote themselves and denigrate their enemies. So, it's dirty, it's terrible, but I can see the strategy from a mile away. From Politico. Pelosi, first woman speaker to depart Dem leadership in seismic shift. I don't know why it's a seismic shift, that's why I grabbed this one. From Sarah Ferris. Pelosi, one of the most powerful speakers in modern history, will cede the helm of House leadership after 20 years and take on an unfamiliar role, rank-and-file member. Since she reclaimed the gavel in 2018, the first woman speaker, whose legislative prowess has powered her party's agenda under 4 presidents, planned to give it up after this term, yet her decision to become more complicated, she said, by the brutal assault of her husband Paul last month. But in a floor speech attended by nearly every member of her Democratic caucus, including plenty of cheery allies, Pelosi declared it was time for a new generation of leaders. Clad in stark white, the color of suffragists, and her hue of choice for critical moments, the California Democrat delivered her farewell speech within a chamber where she has been part of Washington's biggest moments for decades. The decision paves the way for House's biggest leadership shakeup in either party since the Republican Revolution of '94. Hakeem Jeffries, the current caucus chair, will seek the role of minority leader for the next Congress after months of steadily building support across the caucus. He's not expected to face a challenger after Politico reported that Adam Schiff decided to forego a leadership bid, as he instead turns his focus to a possible Senate run. Who's up for California senatorial re-election next year? Who's he going to run against? Feinstein. I think it's going to be the one. Let me double check. I want to see when their terms end. Yeah, she will be up in 2024. It will be Feinstein that he's running against. But Feinstein is, by the way, seeking re-election. According to her wiki article, on January 2021, Feinstein filed the initial FEC commission paperwork needed to seek re-election in 24, when she will be 91. So yes, it will be Adam Schiff seeking a primary against Dianne Feinstein. 91. Dude, at some point, retire. Go spend time with your great-grandkids at 91 years old. Representative Madeline Dean of Pennsylvania, who was crying as she left Pelosi's speech, said in between sobs that she was joyful and sad. Longtime Pelosi ally Rep. Jim McGovern of Mass recalled texting with his colleague, college-age daughter about Pelosi's shattering of glass ceilings. Amid that heartfelt appreciation from her caucus, her two longtime deputies, Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn, also revealed their future plans immediately after the speech. Clyburn, who remains close to the Biden admin, will seek the elected position of assistant to the minority leader. Hoyer will not seek a leadership position, but will also remain in Congress as a rank-and-file member, according to multiple people familiar with the decision. Catherine Clark will seek the number 2 position below Jeffries, minority whip, while Rep. Peter Aguilar will seek the number 3 position, which will now be a caucus chair, according to multiple people familiar with the discussions. Clyburn's position will fall outside that seniority structure. For most of the last 2 years, there was little question among Democrats that Pelosi would leave her leadership position. After the November election, she had been promised her caucus in 2018 that she would only seek 2 more terms as leader, part of a bargain that she had made with her defectors to lock down votes for Speaker of the caucus after the caucus reclaimed the majority. But some Democrats began questioning in recent days whether she had changed her mind, first after her husband Paul was attacked at her home last month. After the party's better-than-expected midterm performances, others began privately or publicly telling her to stay, arguing that she was the best tactical weapon against potential Speaker McCarthy. So, well, we'll see. From Fox News, which will not archive. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that anymore, at least temporarily. Pelosi ignores Trump in leadership farewell speech, mentioning Bush, Obama, and Biden. From Anders Hagstrom. Oddly enough, 3 people in the Uniparty. House Speaker Pelosi ignored former President Trump in her farewell speech to Congress on Thursday. The Democrat icon expressed how honored she had felt to have served along Presidents W., Barack, and Joe Biden, but didn't mention Trump at all. Pelosi stated Thursday in a speech on the House floor that she plans to stay in Congress but will no longer seek leadership in the Democratic caucus. I have enjoyed working with 3 presidents, achieving historic investments in clean energy, with President George W. Bush, transformative healthcare reform with President Barack Obama, and forging the future from infrastructure to healthcare to climate action with President Joe Biden. Yeah, I caught that too, actually. Now we must move boldly in the future, grounded by the principles that have propelled us this far. Yeah, you knew that she was going to do that. You know, Miss Tears the speech. You knew she was going to do that. From NBC, McCarthy skips Pelosi's retirement speech as some Republicans pay grudging respect. From Sahil Kapoor, Frank Thorpe V, and Liz Brown Kaiser. When Speaker Pelosi announced her retirement from Congress on Thursday, the House chamber was packed with Democratic lawmakers in anticipation of the announcement from an icon of American politics. The Republican side of the chamber was largely empty. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is eyeing the Speaker's job after his party captured the majority, barely, was nowhere to be seen. Asked why he skipped her speech, McCarthy said, "I had meetings, but normally the others would do it during votes. I wish she could have done that. I could have been there." Steve Scalise was the only member of the GOP's upper echelons to be sitting in the chamber. The Louisiana Republican, who is a survivor of political violence, stood up to applaud when Pelosi mentioned her husband Paul's recovery from a brutal assault during his home invasion. Brutal assault on his rectum. Elise Stefanik of New York, the third-ranking member of the caucus, described herself as ultra-mega Republican, had nothing positive to say about Pelosi after her announcement. The Pledge of Allegiance, moments before Pelosi made her announcement, was led by Joe Wilson of South Carolina, who became infamous in 2009 when he yelled, "You lie," to then President Barack Obama during a speech in a joint session of Congress. Among the few Republicans in the chamber were Dan Moiser of Pennsylvania. "She's got quite a legacy, that's for sure," he said afterwards. "She's an incredibly strong lady, hard worker, determined, certainly proved to be an excellent leader for her Democrat Party. I disagreed with her probably 98% of the time," he said, "but you've got to respect what she's done. I was here because it was historic, the first woman Speaker of the House, and now, stepping down for a second time, she's quite a lady, and I don't necessarily mean that always in a positive way." Yeah, I mean, she's had a tenure. I cannot sit here and deny the fact that she's had a tenure. There have been good things and bad things that go with that, and she's garnered a lot of admiration, a lot of religious reverence, and a lot of hatred. And the majority of what has to do with Nancy Pelosi is the fact that she sought power. Desperately. Whatever was going to make her the richest, the most powerful, the most influential, she did. From the Hill, Justin Amash offers to serve as nonpartisan Speaker. One of the most partisan members of the LP wants to serve as a nonpartisan Speaker. I'm going to go with a how about no? But I'm not a fan of Amash either. Massey! There's one that I'd like to see take the speakership role. Tommy, where you at? Get in there. From Emily Brooks. Former Rep. Justin Amash has offered to serve as nonpartisan Speaker of the House, and Democrats cannot agree on a candidate from either party to fill the post. Republicans and Democrats cannot agree on a candidate from either party to fill the post. The offer from Amash, a former Republican turned Libertarian lawmaker, comes as House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy faces opposition from some members of the party, complicating his speakership bid. If neither party has the votes to elect a Speaker of the House, I'd be happy to serve as a nonpartisan Speaker who ensures the institution works as it's supposed to. A place where all ideas are welcome and where outcomes are discovered through the process, not dictated from above, Amash said in a tweet on Tuesday. Amash was elected as a Republican in the 2010 Tea Party wave and built a reputation of being staunchly critical of the top-down nature of congressional power. He was the first Republican to call for then-President Trump's impeachment in 2019, and later that year left the GOP to become an independent, and couldn't get elected again because part of his seat was that they were voting for the party and not the person. And I'm sorry, but he was not a popular enough representative to fill that position, especially when he went against the leader of the party that put him into power in the first place. I'm not surprised he's not in Congress anymore. In 2020, Amash registered as a Libertarian, becoming the party's first member of Congress. He considered running for president as a third-party candidate, but decided against it and left the House at the end of his term. The Speaker is not required to be an elected member of Congress, but everyone so far has been. House Republicans chose McCarthy as their nominee for Speaker in closed-door secret ballot election on Tuesday, but he faced a last-minute primary protest challenge from Andy Biggs, a former chair of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, who has knocked McCarthy's plans for House rules management and his reluctance to pursue impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, which he absolutely should be seeking, but McCarthy easily won the House GOP Speaker nomination over Biggs, 188-31, but he will still have to win a majority of votes on the House floor, 218 votes, assuming a fully sworn-in House, in order to win the gavel. With an expected slim majority for House Republicans, McCarthy will have just a few votes to spare for Republican defections on the House floor, fewer than 31. Yeah, like 3. McCarthy and his allies project confidence that he will win the floor vote, but it's unclear how many Republicans are set on voting against him. Not every member of the Freedom Caucus agrees with challenging McCarthy, though Marjorie Taylor Greene has thrown her support behind McCarthy, arguing that division among Republicans could lead some moderate defectors to join with Democrats and elect a less conservative speaker as a compromise. I would like to see Justin Amash stay as far away from the Congress as he possibly can. He did his time. He brought some popularity to the LP. He got in the history books, the first LP member of Congress, although with an asterisk because he couldn't get elected there that way. But, now it's time to just step aside, Justin. Let your more clear-headed libertarian friends have the leadership. It still bothers me that we look at the House and call it leadership because they work for us, but that's a hurdle I'll never get over. From CNN. Do we have any more McCarthy stuff? Nope. Now we get to talk about the investigations. Inside the White House's months of prep work for a GOP investigative onslaught. From Jeremy Diamond, Priscilla Alvarez, Jeremy Herb, Sean Lingas, Zachary Cohen, and Kylie Atwood. Because apparently it takes 6 people to write a CNN article. And they only have room to picture 5 of them. CNN explains who GOP probe in the Biden White House is targeting. We'll look at that a little bit later. More than 4 months before voters handed Republicans control of the House of Representatives, top White House and Department of Homeland Security officials huddled in Roosevelt Room to prepare for that very scenario. The department and its secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, had emerged as the top targets of Republican ire over the Biden admin's border and security policies, ire that is certain to fuel aggressive congressional investigations, with Republicans projected to narrowly reclaim the House majority and the subpoena power that comes with it. Sitting around the large conference table in the Roosevelt Room, White House lawyers probed senior DHS officials about their preparations for the wide-ranging Republican oversight that they had begun to anticipate, including Republican stated plans to impeach Mayorkas. 2 sources familiar with the meeting said. Convened by Richard Sauber, a veteran white-collar attorney hired in May to oversee the admin's response to congressional oversight, the meeting was one of several White House has held since summer with lawyers from across the admin, including Defense Department, State Department, and Justice Department. The point, people familiar with the effort said, has been to ensure agencies are ready for the coming investigative onslaught and to coordinate an administration-wide approach. While President Biden and Democrats campaign to preserve their congressional majorities, and a small team of attorneys, communication strategists, and legislative specialists have spent the past few months holed up in Washington, preparing for an alternative to admin officials said. The preparations, largely run out of the Eisenhower Executive Office building near the White House, are among the earliest and most comprehensive by any admin ahead of a midterm election, and highlight how far-reaching and aggressive the Republican investigations are expected to be. Along with Sauber, this spring the White House hired veteran Democratic communications aide Ian Sams as a spokesperson for the White House. Top Biden advisor Anita Dunn returned to the White House in the spring, in part to oversee the admin's preparations for a GOP-controlled Congress. The Justice Department is also bracing for investigations, bringing in well-known government transparency attorney Austin Evers to help respond to legislative oversight. Evers is the founder of the group American Oversight and served as the executive director until this year. Previously handled the oversight response at the State Department. The White House is preparing to hire additional lawyers and other staff to beef up its oversight response team in the next 2 months. Yeah, this sure sounds like somebody who has nothing to hide. This sure sounds like an admin that has absolutely nothing to hide, doesn't it? Before the new Congress convenes in January, admin officials said the hires will bolster Sauber's current team of about 10 lawyers, a source familiar with the matter said. In piecing together GOP targets and strategy, the team has paid close attention to Jim Jordan of Ohio and Jim Comer of Kentucky, 2 Republicans who are likely to lead much of the investigations under a GOP-controlled House and have spent months telegraphing their intentions in TV interviews and oversight letters. Their opening salvo came Thursday when Comer and Jordan hosted a joint news conference to preview the various investigations into President Biden's family. In the 118th Congress, this committee will evaluate the status of Joe Biden's relationship with his family's foreign partners and whether he's a president who's compromised or swayed by foreign dollars and influence, said Comer, the top Republican on the House Oversight Committee. I want to be clear, this is an investigation of Joe Biden, and that's where the committee will focus its next Congress. Comer, flanked by Jordan and other Republicans in the Oversight Committee, said Republicans have made connections between the president's son, Hunter, and the president, whom they believe require further investigation. The White House accused Comer of pursuing long-debunked conspiracy theories as they pack themselves up with lawyers and find every avenue they can to hide everything that they can. Again, I say, this sure sounds like an admin that has nothing to hide, doesn't it? Even though the Republican majority is poised to be much thinner than expected, with a likely margin of just a couple seats, all indications are that the House Republicans are poised to push ahead with a wide-ranging set of investigations into all corners of the Biden admin, including a messy U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, the pink-pox vaccine mandates, and the Justice Department's handling of the various investigations related to Donald Trump. Now, there's a lot of criticism over this. You know, you've got the paid shills that are already out there screaming, "Oh, this is their plan to combat inflation. Investigate Hunter Biden." I want to address that for just a moment. The plan to address inflation, and I point this out every time one of these stupid morons over on Twitter actually brings this up and says, "Oh, they're going to investigate. It's so horrible. They're going to investigate my pearls. Oh, my pearls. How could they investigate him? He's so godlike. He's our deity." With the inflation thing, obviously the first thing to put a curb to the inflation is going to be to stop the spending, which is going to be stop the fire hose of cash going into the Ukraine and the fire hose of cash going to the American people. Those are going to be the first two things. Yes, they do have a major plan to curb the inflation, at least stanch the bleeding. Of course, they can't make any fiscal policy without the Senate to try to reverse it or even try to give us negative inflation. Man, that would feel good right about now. About 2/4 of negative inflation. Doesn't even have to be a lot of negative inflation, but if we got 2/4 of minus 0.5 in a row, that's 6 months of 0.5% inflation year over year. That would put a lot of relief in a lot of people's pockets. It wouldn't bring us back to where we were in 2020. It wouldn't bring us back to where we were in 2019, but that would put a lot of relief in a lot of people's pockets and probably open up the floodgates of getting people out to work and a mad property buy. But with that being said, I mean, again, even stopping a large amount of the spending is going to put a stanch to the bleeding that is the inflationary crisis right now, without having to raise the Fed rate and force us into recession. Now, with that being said, with a 50 or 51 seat Senate, or 50 seat with Kamala as the tiebreaker, with that, there is really nothing else that they can do but investigate. The government's hamstrung. They can't do anything. Which, I mean, that makes me a happy guy. The White House accused Comer of pursuing long-debunked conspiracy theories. If that was the case, then you wouldn't be shoring up your defenses so hard. There is something to hide in this administration. Their actions here show it. And while I would advise anybody who has to deal with the government to lawyer up, most of us, when we do have to deal with the government, even deal with Congress, can do it with 1 or 2 attorneys. Not getting an attorney for every single office in the executive branch. But we'll see what's happening with that. I'd like to see what they turn up. From Fox News, White House says GOP Biden family investigation full of long debunked conspiracy theories. I'm gonna debunk! Let's find the debunker. And I didn't save the meme, so we'll actually have to go back and get it. The debunker! There he is. Open image in new tab. Let's bring that over here. There it is. Long debunked. The debunker has a premium Snopes membership. Fake. Hashtag myth. Straw man argument. I must debunk. Actually, that was already debunked. Your investigation into Hunter Biden, that was debunked. False. Snopes debunked it. This proves I'm right. Hashtag fact checked. False. Snopes debunked it. His Twitter bio, independent fact checker. Skeptic. Source? Once debunked a user on YouTube. Hashtag facts on facts. He's gonna debunk. From Rich Edson. Remind me once we get back into the gaming side of things here that I do want to play the Persona series on stream as well. Mostly because I love the music. The White House accused congressional Republicans of promoting long debunked conspiracy theories. Debunked! In a swift response after House lawmakers alleged that President Biden was actively involved in overseas business dealings alongside his son Hunter. Meanwhile, packing themselves up with as many lawyers as they can and trying to find ways out of testifying. Instead of working with President Biden to address issues important to the American people like lower costs, congressional Republicans' top priority is to go after President Biden with politically motivated attacks, chock full of long debunked conspiracy theories. Ian Sams, a spokesman for the White House counsel's office, said on Thursday. President Biden is not going to let these political attacks distract him from focusing on Americans' priorities, and we hope congressional Republicans will join us in tackling them instead of wasting time and resources on political revenge, he added. Revenge! After securing the House majority in the midterms, GOP reps Jim Comer of Kentucky and Jim Jordan of Ohio held a press conference Thursday to detail their impending investigations into the Biden admin. And we read about that. He's going to debunk. Biden district Republicans brush off impeachment talk. From Sophia Kai and Andrew Solender over at Axios. Republicans who defend or flipped seats in districts that President Biden won in 20 have a message for their party leaders. Focus on the economy, not impeachment. Well, considering the fact that there's a 50-50 Senate, or a 51-49 Senate, depending on what happens in Georgia, and nothing is going to get done through the Senate, the only thing focusing on the economy is stop the fire hose of spending. I'm going to debunk. Some rank-and-file Republicans and leadership aides have feared overly politicized investigations, including impeachment, may backfire on the party seeking to rebuild credibility among independents after an underwhelming performance in the midterms. Fewer than 3 in 10 Americans said Congress should focus on a presidential impeachment investigation or Hunter's finances, according to a Morning Consult poll released on Wednesday. That didn't stop House Republicans from holding a press conference on Thursday, the morning after officially taking the majority, vowing to investigate the Biden family's business dealings. This is kind of a big deal, we think. If we can keep it about Hunter, that would be great, House Oversight Committee ranking members Jim Comer told reporters as he sought to rein in Q&A. Rep-elect Zach Nunn of Iowa told Axios he wants to focus on the budget and investigating the withdrawal from Afghanistan, adding that any further action should be reserved for those very rare situations where there may be laws broken. The top priority is to deal with inflation and the cost of living. What I don't want to see is what we saw in the Trump admin, where Democrats went after the president and the admin incessantly, Rep-elect Mike Lawler of New York said on CNN. I think that for at least the first 6 months, we should work on making the country energy independent. Well, again, the problem with that is you've got a blue wall in the Senate that won't let you get anything passed on energy policy. I admire your gumption. I think that you're going the absolute correct direction. But I also point out the inherent problem of the fact that you don't have a way forward on it. We should work on reducing crime across metro areas such as New York City, and then we can start talking about investigations, George Santos, also of New York, said on Fox News. I would not mind seeing 3 impeachments. I'm going to come right out and say that. I'd like to see that. And again, I think that turning off the fire hose of cash is going to do at least something for the inflation rate. It's not going to do a lot, but it'll do something for it. From the Associated Press. U.S. moves to shield Saudi Crown Prince in journalist killing. Yeah, you remember that? The campaign speech of, "Hey, I'm not going to let our journalists feel unsafe anywhere in the country. I'm going to make sure that that Saudi Arabia is held responsible for Jamal Khashoggi." Well, it turns out that was also a lie. From Ellen Nickmeyer and Matthew Lee. The Biden admin declared Thursday that the high office held by Saudi Arabia's crown prince should shield him from lawsuits for his role in the killing of U.S.-based journalist, a turnaround from Joe Biden's passionate campaign trail denunciations of Mohammed bin Salman over the brutal slaying. The admin said the prince's official standing should give him immunity in the lawsuit filed by the fiancé of the slain Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, and by the rights group he founded, Democracy for the Arab World Now. The request is non-binding, and a judge will ultimately decide whether to grant immunity. But it's bound to anger human rights activists and many U.S. lawmakers, coming as Saudi Arabia has stepped up imprisonment and other retaliation against peaceful critics at home and abroad, and has cut oil production, a move seen as undercutting efforts by the U.S. and its allies to punish Russia for its war against Ukraine. The State Department on Thursday called the admin's decision to try to protect the Saudi crown prince from U.S. courts in Khashoggi's killing purely illegal determination. The State Department cited what it said was a long-standing precedent. Despite its recommendation to the court, the State Department said in its filing late Thursday, it takes no view on the merits of the present suit and reiterates its unequivocal condemnation of the heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi. But instead of allowing them to be sued for it, they just say, no, he should be fine. Don't worry about it. Stop looking over here. On to election news. Got a little bit of that. One from the Hill, which is prefaced by the words, "Here we go!" And this is what I'm here for. I want to see this. And I know most of this is going to be dismissed as well, by the way. But I want to see what happens if Discovery comes up and what they bring forward. Kari Lake declines to concede, says she's assembling a legal team. Here we go. Correction, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chair Bill Gates' party affiliation has been corrected. He is a Republican. Yeah, okay. Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake declined to concede governor race to Democrat Katie Hobbs Thursday, raising concerns. I don't know, McLeod, but Brian Kemp did that in 2018 as well, so when we ask how it's legal, that's going to be the first thing that our opponents are going to bring out. But my Brian Kemp! To which I typically say it wasn't right then either. The Associated Press and other outlets projected that Hobbs won the race on Monday, but Lake indicated she's assembling a legal team that is collecting evidence and data pertaining to the electoral process. Rest assured, I've assembled the best and brightest legal team, and we're exploring every avenue to correct the many wrongs that have been done this past week, Lake said in a video address posted Thursday morning. Let me see if we can see it. Sure can. Thank you, The Hill.
Lake here. I wanted to read.
Let's listen to Kari Lake.
Hey Arizona, Kari Lake here. I wanted to reach out to you to let you know that I am still in this fight with you. For 2 years, I've been sounding the alarm about our broken election system here in Arizona, and this past week has confirmed everything we've been saying. When we called for Katie Hobbs to recuse herself over a year ago, they ridiculed us. It turns out we were right. The fox was guarding the hen house, and because of that, voters have been disenfranchised. When we raised concerns, and I filed a lawsuit months ago to get rid of the electronic voting machines, they said we were crazy. Well, it turns out we were right. On Election Day, nearly half of all polling locations had problems with tabulating machines and printers. Malfunctioning tabulation machines forced voters to wait in line for hours to exercise their sacred right to vote. I talked to voters who waited in line for hours. One man told me he went to a location and there was a 3-hour line because the tabulators weren't working. He drove 15 miles to another location and the printers weren't working. He drove another 15 miles and was finally able to cast his vote, but he's not sure it counted. Our election officials failed us miserably. What happened to Arizonans on Election Day is unforgivable. Tens of thousands of Maricopa County voters were disenfranchised. Now, I am busy here collecting evidence and data. Rest assured, I have assembled the best and brightest legal team, and we are exploring every avenue to correct the many wrongs that have been done this past week. I'm doing everything in my power to right these wrongs. My resolve to fight for you is higher than ever. This movement started in Arizona, and it quickly expanded to all 50 states. It's a movement of mama bears and papa bears and students and Arizonans who love this country, who want secure borders, who want schools that prepare their children for the real opportunities that are out there. It's a movement of Arizonans who want safe streets once again and want the drug crisis to come to an end. It's a movement of Arizonans who want prosperity and the pursuit of happiness. That movement is stronger than it ever has been. And I can promise you one thing. This fight to save our republic has just begun. I love you, Arizona, and I love you, America.
So, and I mean, that's a big address. And, you know, I look at this objectively. I do think that Kari Lake should be the winner just based on the polling that went into all this. But, you know, pretty much at the point where I saw the Maricopa thing on Election Day, I said, oh yeah, no. Katie Hobbs won this already. They figured this out. They honked. They won. But I'm glad that there's challenges, especially in situations that turn out so vastly different from the polling. Would it be interesting if I saw Blake Masters actually pull this one back out too? Because it does seem like control of the Senate was a desperation move in this particular election. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. I can tell you that right off the bat. I don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is the fact that I've got a lot of questions about this, and you get called an election denier and a dangerous conspiracy theorist. Even if you just ask the question. It's not even coming out and alleging and saying, I know that there was fraud, and I know that a certain religion that we're not going to talk about on YouTube was behind all the fraud. Even it's not like you're coming out and saying those things, but even just saying, hey, this looks a little bit weird. Can we look into this, please? Dangerous conspiracy theorist, election denier. But also looking objectively at this, I see Kari Lake saying, I've assembled the best and brightest team.
Hey, Arizona, Kari Lake here.
All right, we listened to you already. Go away. Even with Kari saying we've assembled the best and brightest team, my first question comes out as, is it Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani? Please tell me you got a better legal team than those two. Let's see. On multiple occasions, Lake, a Trump-backed candidate, sidestepped questions about whether she would accept the results of her election. Since Election Day, Lake has called election officials incompetent, and shortly after Hobbs was projected as the winner, Lake tweeted, Arizonans know BS when they see it. Lake on Thursday pointed to printing malfunctions in Maricopa, the state's most populous county that includes Phoenix, calling it unforgivable and claiming voters were disenfranchised. 70 of the county's 223 voting centers early on Election Day used printers that churned out ballots with ink that was too light for tabulation machines to read, election officials said. Voters could wait in line until the issue was fixed, cast a ballot at another vote center, or deposit their original ballot in a separate secure box that was sent to the county's central facility for tabulation. Now, Hobbs, accepted. Lake, oh, there's a problem with this ballot, rejected. Hobbs, Hobbs, Lake, 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 Lake. Look at all the problems that we have with these ballots. They only seem to be going one way at our central tabulation facility. Boebert claiming victory, which, while we're listening to Boebert's speech here, I'll go and look up and see where the numbers are actually at. They are insanely tight right now.
Hey everyone, great news tonight as almost all the votes have finally been tallied. I'm told that there are less than 200 votes outstanding, which makes me so happy to announce we have won this race. With this victory and with Republicans in control of the House of Representatives, we can focus on the issues that actually matter most, including getting inflation under control, increasing our domestic energy supply, securing the southern border, and being a strong check on the White House. Now, over the next couple of weeks, this race will have an automatic recount, which will be completed in early December. My campaign team and our lawyers will definitely make sure everything is conducted properly. Past recounts in Colorado have resulted in far fewer votes being adjusted than anything that could affect the current outcome we're seeing tonight in this race. So come January, you can be certain of two things. I will be sworn in for my second term as your Congresswoman, and Republicans can finally turn Pelosi's house back into the people's house. Thank you to every volunteer that made calls, knocked doors, and of course, to each of you that has entrusted me with your vote. I am honored to be your representative. I pray for you, and I am so grateful for you. God bless you tonight.
So, as far as that goes, there are some things that I will say to that. We've got the race up there. It's still projecting as a Boebert win. Right now, we are coming down, still saying 99% reporting, with 200 votes left, if that's the actual accurate amount. Then Adam Frisch doesn't have a way forward outside of the automatic recount. And that is and a lot of people were in the comments on that particular video reminding her of there is an automatic recount provision under a 0.5 percentage point in Colorado, which I do wonder if that's going to be where they find all the votes. I just need to find 11,000 votes, except no, in this one it's going to be like 500 votes. 600. 600 is all that separates the two of them. But it does look like, by the very narrowest of margins, Boebert is going to take this over Frisch. Let's talk about Florida. Judge strikes down higher education portions of DeSantis' Stop Woke Act. From Zach Schoenfield. A federal judge on Thursday struck down provisions of Florida's Stop Woke Act that prohibited public college employees from promoting 8 concepts that are related to race during instruction. U.S. District Judge Mark Walker, who previously blocked the portions of the law in a separate case, quoting the opening sentence of George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984 as he issued a preliminary injunction blocking the law's higher education provisions, and pushed back on the state's arguments. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13, and the powers in charge of Florida's public university system have declared the state has unfettered authority to muzzle its professors in the name of freedom, Walker wrote. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and state GOP lawmakers championed the legislation fighting back against a woke agenda pushed by liberals banning the instillment of critical race theory. Yeah, I kind of figured when you told a bunch of communist college professors that they can't talk about their communist ideas, then they're going to go back and find a way to get back around it. I mean, we all did see that coming, right? An undergrad student organization and professor at the University of South Florida filed the suit in September and were supported by a variety of legal advocacy organizations. Walker ruled the First Amendment protects professors' in-class speech and the provisions were impermissibly vague, describing the law as positively dystopian as he compared to the Ministry of Truth, the propaganda agency in Orwell's novel. Our professors are critical to a healthy democracy, and the state of Florida's decision to choose which viewpoints are worthy of illumination and which must remain in the shadows has implications for us all, Walker ruled. If our priests of democracy are not allowed to shed light on the challenging ideas, then democracy will die in darkness, he added. But first, amendment does not permit the state of Florida to muzzle the university professors, impose its own orthodoxy of viewpoints, and cast us all into the darkness. I am on the fence on this one, and I'm going to come right out and admit this. Now, being a state school, because, of course, the Stop Woke Act will not do anything for private schools. Well, first off, I want to just talk about where this provision should start and where it should end before I talk about the governmental aspect of it. Professors, in a perfect world, would give the ideas and let the people discuss them in a classroom setting, instead of trying to lead people into, okay, you need to accept this idea, otherwise you're a bad, evil, fascist, racist, bigot, homophobe, sexist, xenophobic, Republican, fascist, Nazi, etc. Which is what they do now. And I've been to college. That's what they did 20 years ago when I was in college. You expect me to believe they're not doing it now? The reason that I did drop out of engineering school and went to mechanics school, partially was because I ran out of money, but partially it was because on one of the required sociology classes, the sociology professor was trying to literally show us and indoctrinate us into, you have to be this way, and you have to accept this, and you have to accept that. And I said no, and I walked out. And then I switched and went to a trade school instead. This is not new. And everybody knows that, by the way. None of this is new. In a perfect world, the professor in the classroom would be presenting ideas, and yes, some of them are going to have to come on the critical race theory side so they can be discussed openly. And again, not pushed in one direction or the other. Now, if the particular professor wants to participate or advise in an outside group explicitly for the advancement of race, racial ideas, sex ideas, etc., religious ideas, philosophical ideas, if you want to have the Young Democrats Club or the Black Students Union or things like that, and you have a professor you want to advise to that, that's a completely different story than what's in the classroom. So that's what it would be in a perfect world. Now, as far as where I think that these professors have standing, and it'll be interesting to see where the final courts do land on this, but I think there is a level of standing in this, because when we talk about doing this in the elementary school, in the state-run elementary school, it is required for you to have a student in school from age 4 to age 18. And at that point, I say, in the classroom, there is no place for CRT, communism, Marxism, or trying to force or foist a set of ideas onto somebody. College, I don't think there's a place for it either, but I think that there's more standing for it, because while you can't get a job without a college education, the lie they've been trying to tell us since the 90s, you'll just be a janitor making under minimum wage unless you go and get a college education. Again, a lie they've been telling us since the 90s. College is not required. That is a choice that you make, and you will pick your college based on the fact of whether professors are there spouting this Marxist nonsense. But you're not bound by the location that you live in, or whether or not your parents have enough money to send you to the private school. You're not bound by that like you are in elementary school. Again, I still don't think it's right for the professors to do that, but on a strictly legal, objective standpoint, I do think they have standing, based on the fact that it's voluntary. And I hope they lose. I hope the professors lose. But I also want to see it get fought out so we have a definitive answer to it. The American Civil Liberties Union, the Legal Defense Fund, and the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, all of whom were involved in challenges to the law, celebrated Thursday's ruling. Brian Griffin, DeSantis' press secretary, said the decision included several victories for the state, but they intend to appeal. We strongly disagree with Judge Walker's preliminary injunction to order the enforcement of the Stop Woke Act, and will continue to fight to prevent Florida students and employees from being subjected to discriminatory classroom instruction or mandated discriminatory workplace training, Griffin said. The Stop Woke Act protects the open exchange of ideas by prohibiting teachers or employees who hold agency over others from forcing discriminatory conceptions on students as part of classroom instruction or on employees as a condition of maintaining employment. Griffin added, an open-minded, critical, and environment necessitates that one is free from discrimination. Man, I really want to see this get fought out so we actually have a definitive answer to it. Obama judge faces backlash for halting DeSantis' Stop Woke Act. This clown is dumber than dirt, reports Ryan Saavedra from the Daily Wire. Yeah, we know the background of this from the last article. Christopher J. Scalia, son of former Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, responded to Walker's sentence, referring to the professor as being the priest of democracy by saying, "The whole sentence is embarrassing. We need to start getting rid of these repulsive judges or giving them IQ tests," political commentator David Riboy tweeted. "This clown is dumber than dirt." David Riboy, is that Ron Helton's online pseudonym? Because that sounds like the way that he would word things. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state? Attorney Will Chamberlain tweeted, "If professors are priests of democracy, then universities are churches and must do without all government funding." Yes, the American University, a flourishing marketplace of ideas, law professor Adrian Vermeule tweeted sarcastically. "Priests of democracy is correct, although not in the sense the judge intended." The Daily Signal's Jarrett Stepman tweeted, "Priests of democracy, the left actually wants to publicly fund religion, as long as it's their religion." And government worship is a religion, by the way. Let's do some Philly news, some Pennsylvania news. Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner impeached by Pennsylvania House. I have no author given. Philadelphia's elected Democratic prosecutor faces a state Senate trial and possible removal from office after the Republican-led state House voted Wednesday to impeach him over progressive policies that he has enacted amidst a rising crime in the city. Lawmakers voted 107 to 85 to impeach DA Larry Krasner, setting the stage for what would be the first Pennsylvania Senate impeachment trial in nearly 3 decades. Republicans currently have a 29 to 21 majority in the state Senate, going 28 to 22 earlier next year, and 2/3 votes of the senators present would be required to remove Krasner. Which, by the way, they don't have. Krasner, who was overwhelmingly reelected by Philadelphia voters last year, is not accused of breaking the law. Instead, Republicans argued he should be removed from office for various reasons, including failure to prosecute some minor crimes, and his bail request policies, his staff oversight, and reports that his office didn't adequately notify crime victims about certain matters. They also alleged Krasner obstructed the House investigation of his office. Krasner said in a statement that the vote was the only time the State House has ever used the remedy of impeachment of an elected official because they did not like their ideas. Well, if you're not doing your job, then perhaps it's time to step down. ABC News continues, why Philadelphia's DA was impeached by Pennsylvania's Republican-led House. From Amanda Sue. Pennsylvania's Republican-led state House voted overwhelmingly to impeach Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner over what they allege is his lax approach to crime, leniency towards criminal offenders, and other allegations. The House's 107 to 85 vote on Wednesday will send the matter to the Republican-controlled state Senate. This will set the stage for what will be the first Pennsylvania Senate impeachment trial in nearly 3 decades. In their resolution to impeach Krasner, State House Republicans cited what they called his alleged lax approach to crime, including his office's policies to seek more lenient sentences for offenders, as well as his failure to prosecute some low-level offenses such as drug possession and prostitution. I'm actually on his side on that. Like, those are things that probably shouldn't be prosecuted unless there are children involved. But the other side of the fact is when you can go into the tourist hotspot in Philadelphia and see an armed riot go on right outside the cafe, you've gone too far. But yeah, when we're in the situation of simple drug possession and prostitution, this will be why Republicans go back and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Because they're going to go on the puritanical side of, prosecute weed and things like that. If you really want to have a problem with weed and prosecute its use, just throw a person a fine and send them on their way. There's no reason for years and years and years in prison for Harold the Happy Hippie smoking a joint. Krasner said in a statement, the vote was the only time the State House has ever used the drastic remedy of impeachment of an elected official because they do not like his ideas. We've got another one coming here from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Governor-elect Josh Shapiro charges former Democrat political consultant with wide-scale ballot fraud. But I thought there was no such thing as widespread voter fraud. More than 1,000 signatures allegedly forged. Shapiro conveniently does this, by the way, after the election. From Candace Hathaway. Current Pennsylvania AG and Democrat Governor-elect Josh Shapiro arrested former political consultant on Wednesday for allegedly forging ballot signatures in the state's 2019 Democratic primary races. Rasheen Cruz, a Democratic campaign consultant, was hired by multiple candidates to assist in gathering the required number of signatures for nomination petitions to run in the Democratic primary races in 2019. According to an investigation launched by the Office of the AG in September of 2019, Cruz was charged with the wide-scale forgery of signatures on the client's nomination petitions. The investigation involved several of Cruz's clients, including 5 candidates running for the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, 3 running for Philadelphia Municipal Court, and 3 running in both elections. Cruz allegedly enlisted individuals to assist in his petition work by having them write names and addresses and forge signatures on multiple petitions. He is then accused of having the petitions notarized and filed with the Pennsylvania Department of State. Shapiro, who has been critical of Republicans who have questioned election integrity, has repeatedly denied voter fraud in Pennsylvania, said Wednesday in a statement that Cruz's arrest is an important reminder that interfering with the integrity of our elections is a serious crime. By soliciting and organizing the wide-scale forgery of signatures, the defendant undermined the democratic process and Philadelphians' right to a free and fair election, Shapiro said. My office is dedicated to upholding the integrity of the election process across the Commonwealth to ensure everyone can participate in Pennsylvania's future. The investigation discovered that more than 1,000 of the signatures were allegedly duplicates. The Office of the AG found that many of the names and addresses were repeated on several petition pages, while other pages appeared to be photocopied. Additionally, some individuals listed claimed they never signed the petitions. They did that in the Walker recall in Wisconsin too, by the way. They were going up to people, and people were going up and bragging that they signed the petition 7, 8, 10. I heard somebody on the news say he signed the petition 28 times for the recall. Now, with this being said, if I was governor-elect, and AG also at the time, this would be followed up immediately by a question of, okay, well, we got to redo this because there's no way of knowing what's right and what's wrong. But again, I noticed that Josh Shapiro waited until after the concession from both Mastriano and Mehmet Oz. And now I do have to come back and wonder, okay, now how many ballots were submitted on the mail-in side of things using the information from these signatures? I have a lot of questions about this. I really do. And of course, the big thing that's going to come out of all of this is if you have questions, then you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a fascist, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, you just arrested a guy for widespread fraud. I have more questions about the rest of this election. And by the way, I think that you're probably still going to come back out and win it because it's Pennsylvania. I'd just like you to look into it a little bit, please. There was one that I wanted to get to before we got out of here. Oh, two that I wanted to get to before we got out of here. So we're going to skip ahead to the rest of these, and I wanted to get to these last two before we went. Muskrat Rat Screwer needs to resign as CEO. Apparently this person doesn't care for Elon Musk because he's tweeting this out here. Twitter's San Francisco headquarters has gone hardcore tonight. Hashtag Twitter takeover. Because you projected something on the outside of the building. Let's read this. Bankruptcy baby. Supreme parasite. Petulant pimple. Apartheid profiteer. Dictator's butt kisser. Lawless oligarch. Insecure colonizer. Cruel hoarder. Space Karen. Mediocre man-child. Pressurized privilege. Petty racist. Megalomaniac. Worthless billionaire. Oxymoron. Bankruptcy baby. And then they start over with Supreme Parasite again. You really got him this time, you guys. I bet you Elon's up there packing up his office saying, okay, well, it's time for me to walk away from Twitter now. You got him this time. And also, by the way, this is the thing that gets me. This is the identical MO. First off, I don't believe that this was done by a former Twitter employee. But what I do want to point out is this is the identical MO that got so many people on the left riled up about the anti-Semitism. Did you notice that? I noticed that. So you're meaning to tell me that both the left and the right are going out and buying these massive projectors and projecting onto buildings their political statements. I actually still don't buy the one on the side with the protected religion. The one on the side of the, was it the Jacksonville building? I still think that one was shooped. But if it wasn't shooped, then somehow they've gone with the same font, which means they probably have the same machine going with the same MO projecting onto the side of a building words that they don't like. And, ain't that the quinkiest of the damn dinks? And the last one, and something that I tend to disagree with based on my own viewpoints of marriage as it's viewed by the state versus how it's viewed by the religion. Jason Whitlock over at The Blaze puts out an op-ed saying, Respect for Marriage Act outlaws your religious beliefs. The Silicon Valley generated social media apps elevated, disclaimer. The views expressed in this op-ed are not necessarily the views of The Blaze, they are the views of the author himself, not necessarily the views of The Blaze, although in this case they kind of are. They're also not necessarily the views of Contemporary Turns of Pages Productions or your host, J. Edgar. Let's read on. The Silicon Valley generated social media apps elevated the importance of feelings and diminished the value of beliefs. The engineers of Twitter and Facebook laughed off Ben Shapiro's Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings declaration and retorted with, Our feelings don't care about your religious beliefs. Shapiro's slogan burnished his brand as the voice of the establishment conservatives, because that's what he is, warmongering, war pig establishment conservative, who is touching himself over the fact that we might have a Congress that could help him go put an end to the Palestinians in Israel and then go back after Iran for Israel. Social media's retort empowered a movement that legalized same-sex marriage, justified Black Lives Matter, and normalized kid-friendly drag queen shows, children choosing genders, and doctors prescribing puberty blockers and surgical mutilation. The engineers of social media won in a landslide. They're in the process of taking another victory lap. Chuck U. Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate, has gathered enough votes to federally codify same-sex marriage into the law of the land. 12 Republicans joined 50 Democrats in pledging to federalize marriage and make gay people a protected class of American citizens. They're calling it the Respect for Marriage Act. After the overturn of the left's abortion golden calf, Roe v. Wade, the Uniparty wants to take steps to protect the same-sex golden calf, Obergefell v. Hodges. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas insinuated that the 2015 decision is unconstitutional, which it is, by the way. And so is this law, by the way. Or bill, I should say. The truth is, the Uniparty believes religious beliefs are unconstitutional and immoral. The establishment has partnered with Northern California's tech companies to outlaw beliefs and set up a system that protects feelings. You follow me? I've argued from the outset of social media that Twitter and Facebook prioritize thoughts and feelings above beliefs. There's a major difference between what a human being thinks or feels and what he believes. I wake up most days thinking I'm as handsome as Idris Elba. The truth is, I believe I more closely resemble Cedric the Entertainer. Okay, I'm going to push back on this a little bit, but not much. Now, first off, my position on marriage is as such. If I ever, for whatever reason, get hitched, and I don't believe that that's actually a possibility, but if I ever, for whatever reason, get hitched, I will get 2 marriage licenses. One will come from the state of Wisconsin. That one will promptly get torn up as soon as the ceremony is over and we start joining our taxes. And one will come from the Lutheran Church of the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, the based Lutheran Church. We don't do the crap that the Missouri Synod does or the ELCA does. I will get 2 marriage licenses. One will allow me to have sex with my wife in a way that is pleasing to God. Hopefully bear some children in the midst of it too. And the other one will be the state saying that I'm allowed to go and file joint taxes. Guess which one I care about? I'll give you a hint. It's not the one that's going to come out of Madison. If 2 people on a state level want to enter into a property contract to make sure that they can go back and visit each other in the hospital or file joint taxes or reside together or any other number of decisions that they want to go back onto this, I don't care about that. You will have to face God at the end of times. You will have to face down his judgment. looking at Jesus at the right hand of God. And that's between you and him. I do not want to participate. I don't care about the state. With that being said, the Respect for Marriage Act is less about outlawing your religious beliefs. They did wind up managing to get a provision into that says that the churches don't have to perform the ceremony. I will take that. But this is still not a federal issue. This is a state's issue. And if the Obergefell decision is unconstitutional, then so is this law for the same reasons. Because it should be on the states who they decide to issue their worthless state property contract to. Who they allow to tax and jointly tax. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that if let's say Idaho, if Obergefell does get overturned, if Idaho goes out and says, okay, we ain't gonna let none of them there blacks and whites get married, and we ain't gonna let none of them boys and boys get married or nothing else like that, or them girls and girls. If Idaho does that the day after Obergefell falls, I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, there's gonna be three groups of people right off the bat that aren't going to move to Iowa. Unless they want to go back up there and make a point and make a lawsuit to the federal government to try to get Obergefell put back on. That is the reason that we have this grand federalist society, where you can move around to find places that more align with your beliefs. So that's what we see for that, and we are over time right now. So let's go ahead and look at the live chat and see what you guys are saying and head out of here for the day. Alright, so we do have some live chat up here today, but it's been slow enough that I don't think we're going to drop off of everybody who chatted in the morning here, except for the fact that I did have to close the program and restart it after people had started chatting. So I'll go back into the YouTube or the Twitch live chat and see where the beginning actually started here. But our chatters this week on Monday, top chatters: Ron Helton, Horatius, Arvold, A Gaines P, Silent Caster, Beam Me Up Mr. Scott came back, Quest Fanning, and Highleaf. I actually missed Highleaf's chat. I didn't see that. But he registered, which means he chatted at least once. On Tuesday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, Horatius, 80s Kid, Arvolt, Randy Crush Saga, A Gaines P, Quest Fanning, and Elizabeth Vike, and Im to Fade, which I didn't see that one either. Wednesday, our top chatters were Arvolt 24, Ron Helton, 80s Kid, Horatius, Blind Fear, Joffre 9, A Gaines P, Randy Crush Saga, Tattoo Lover, who is Kingdom Hearts over in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord, by the way. The link is in the description on YouTube, and it's scrolling through the screen on the Twitch side. Get in there. Let's get some more conversation going, and it's starting to get a little bit more active. And Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut as well. On Thursday, yesterday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, Joffre 9, Arvolt, A Gaines P, Silent Caster, Nephilim Ninja of Nibiru, and Quest Fanning. Today, slow day again as well, but what can you do? Elizabeth Vike is here this morning. Actually, no, because we got some Arvolt ones earlier on. Let's get all the way up to the top. A Gaines P was here this morning. Good morning, at Heads. Arvolt, good morning, friends. Arvolt has the Globe and the CNN. Alright, now we can bring the Restream program back up. Horatio says he's an outspoken anti-white POS, and I know who he's talking about. That is Mr. Hakeem Jeffries. Quest Fanning, given the Stephen Ignoramus, yo! Also says, white ain't right. Quest Fanning says caucus, but Jeffries is not Caucasian. No, that's Caucasus, not caucus. Feinstein is ancient. Yeah, she'll be 91 during the next election that she runs for in Senate. Like, come on, Grandma, it's time. Makes Pelosi look clear-headed. Makes Pelosi look young. Feinstein is 89. Pelosi is 80. Yeah, the Thomas Massey love. Yeah, I would like to see Thomas Massey be the speaker. Arvold of Little Faith says, like, we'll never get negative inflation. They don't want that. I think at this point they might, honestly. I'm gonna move this over here, even though you guys can see it on the side now. So I'm gonna do stuff over here while I'm reading. Alright, good, I'm muted. Let's see. McLeod says, okay, so is it true that Kerry's opponent was overseeing the election herself? Yes. She was the Secretary of State, which means that she has broad oversight of the election. Same with Brian Kemp, which it wasn't right then either. How can she even do that? Because there's no provision in the states that bar Secretaries of State from seeking higher office. And I think that there should be, by the way. No wonder that lady sued. Randy Kreshaga's here. They fortified this election too. No, everything was clear and above board. Promise. Horatius is here, says, I'm surprised they haven't just stolen every election in the country this year. Who's going to do anything about it? Except for everything was completely above board and nothing bad happened in any of the elections. Katie Hobbs is really that popular, even though she doesn't debate. Honk honk, don't ban me, Susan. Gaines says, priests of democracy. Sounds like someone's worshiping at the altar of the state. There are a lot of people that are worshiping at the altar of the state. How about the ideas the lawmakers made into laws? Yeah, I still think that the simple drug possession and prostitution, honestly, should probably be decriminalized at this point. Like, I don't think it's good for prostitution to be out there, but again, that's something that the hookers and the Johns are going to have to deal with when they stand at the pearly gates and talk to St. Peter and then stand before God with Jesus at his right hand. And a lot of these people are not going to they're not going to fare so well. I hate to admit it, but after my 20s, I'm probably going to be one of those people. I got a lot to answer for. Horatius says, how many people are in prison for simple weed possession? Federally 0, I read. I will search after to see if there are any prison stats on that. Most of what we get for simple possession is a plead down, but there are, what they were talking about was state level, not federal level. So that is different. And yeah, because they're impeaching a state district attorney for the city of Philadelphia. That would mean it would be state level charges on that, which may vary from state to state. So while you're looking into that, Horatius, look into how many people are in Philadelphia for a state level weed charge. I don't think it's going to be huge, but I think it's going to be more than 0. Quest Fanning says, fake signatures for nominations. Okay, that was before the election. Quest says, I have questions, but bigotry is a separate issue. That's funny. I like that. What are you asking a question about, Harvey, before I get down to the bottom? I see you over on the Twitch monitor. Harvey says, for serious? How so? But I don't know what she's asking about. Oh, the 400,000 hookers thing. Horatius, yes, yes, and yes. Gaines, election denier. Quest Fanning says, these aren't that funny. Yeah, they were. I think Horatius wanted to throw an N-word out there. Quest Fanning says, stop noticing. Horatius, they're so envious and jealous. They hate us because they ain't us. He also says, less than 7% of sodomites end up getting married. Yeah, I've noted that too, but there are people that, for whatever reason, want it desperately. And I think more of that is to stick it to the church and the stuffed shirt conservatives than it is to actually get the protections and everything for that. Quest Fanning says, thoughts. Horatius, sounds good to me. That was a great impression of me if I had a southern accent. Yeah, we don't want none of them there boy and boy marriages up here. We don't recognize none of that. Well, none of them boy marriages are going to move to your state then. Sounds like everybody wins in a situation like that. Fanning says, all this talk about a burger fell is making me hungry. 80s Kid is here in the lurk a lot. Great stream. Thank you. Horatius says, legalizing prostitution has gone terribly in Germany. Look it up. Over 40,000 hookers there. Not going as planned as all. Interesting. Some of that's probably going to be, obviously degrading the culture, and some of that's also going to be oversaturation in the market too. You can't demand a high price when the person can go down to the next corner and find somebody at a lower price. Horatius said he'll find the article name. Give him a second. Gaines says 400,000 hookers should result in less rapes, I would think. You would think, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. Quest is out of here, Gaines is out of here. And we're out of here. I'm going to go do some work. Well, we're done. There we go. All right, so with that, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody who came by, chatted in the live chat, kept us going throughout the week and throughout the day as well. I definitely go back and I do read everybody's chat, except on occasion. Apparently I missed one from Highleaf 11 on Monday. So, I apologize for that, but yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow. Yeah, we will be back here tomorrow because we'll be playing Legend of Zelda on the emulator. And by emulator, I mean totally legal capture card over on the Twitch side. So come back and join me tomorrow night for that. That'll be about 5:30 Central Time. We'll probably get quite a bit done because that's a considerably shorter game than Mass Effect is. That's a considerably shorter game than Fallout is as well. So yeah, with that, we'll be back here. Otherwise, we'll be back here on Monday for more news, more headlines. Probably get some announcements on what the lawsuits in Arizona are going to be doing and who actually did win in Colorado. We'll see what's happening with that. Looking forward to seeing some of that and seeing what the final shakeup is with the House and sharing it with you, the listener, for a great Thanksgiving week. We will see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.